So when it comes to seeing movies, I have a couple different tiers in terms of how excited I am. There's some movies that I'm really, really excited about. That would be something like, I remember when The Dark Knight was first announced, I saw the trailers for that. I was excited. I was really excited for Blade Runner 2049, Inception, and then I was excited for some movies that a lot of people dislike, like Glass, which didn't turn out very well, and Annihilation, which I liked, but a lot of my viewers disliked. The second tier would be movies that I'm not personally excited about, but I'm very curious about. That would be something like The Matrix 4, which was truly horrendous, but I was kind of interested to see what it would be like so many years later. A lot of horror movies are in this category where I look at it and it's like kind of an interesting premise, or the cinematography looks interesting, and I'll go see it for that reason. And then I guess there's kind of a third category, which is movies I see out of a sense of obligation, either because they're the biggest movie of the year, or I've watched the rest of the films in the franchise, and I've invested that much time in it, so I might as well finish it. The Star Wars reboot is an example of that. A lot of the Marvel movies is an example of that. Just anything that's in a series or that's a big film that I just feel like I need to do a review of this, or this is a cultural phenomenon, I have to take a peek at it. And when I first saw Top Gun Maverick, I was like, okay, we're getting a sequel to this movie from, when was it, like 30 years ago or something? I think Top Gun was made long before I was born. Yeah, it came out 4 years before I was born. And like, we have this like boomer movie from the 80s that's for some reason getting a sequel. I wasn't super excited. The trailer looked okay, but I just like, we're just going to get some like boring nostalgia trip to try to appeal to the fans of the original. And it kept getting delayed, and I didn't care, and I didn't care. And then it came out obviously this year, and I just looked at it and I was like, what? How is this getting reviews this high? Why is everyone saying this random Tom Cruise film is like the greatest thing ever? It's making a ton of money. So I just figured, you know what? I'll go see it, because why not? The original Top Gun was one of my father's favorite movies. I don't think I've ever sat down and watched the whole thing, but I'll give it a shot. I'm going to take the boomer pill. So I decided to take a boomer pill, and I sat down to watch the movie. Something I did appreciate was at the beginning of the film, there was a little clip from Tom Cruise, who was thanking everybody who worked on the production of the movie. He was thanking everybody who decided to give the film a chance after it had been stuck in kind of release hell due to COVID. And I always appreciate that. He came across as being very genuine and very humble. And being genuine and humble are two things that score a lot of points with me. So that put me into a good state. And at the beginning, we got like Danger Zone, we got the Top Gun theme, we got jets flying and landing. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe this movie's going to be pretty good. And pretty early on in the film, I started to like it. I'm like, this is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. It's definitely one of the better produced films I've ever seen. The cinematography, the special effects, the music, the editing, the pacing. It's a very, very polished, well put together product. And I'll have to give it credit for that, because I'll often complain when I'm reviewing movies that it looks like they just edited shit together, or there's like the dialogue doesn't make any sense. For a film that's this long and this big in scale, I think they did a very good job of keeping it focused. And it's weird because the director made two movies I hated, which was Tron Legacy and Oblivion. Tron Legacy is one of, at the time, I thought was one of the worst movies I'd ever seen, or at least one of the worst blockbusters. And Oblivion I also despised. So I don't know, I guess it's a redemption arc for him. So the plot of the movie is 3 decades afterwards. And just a side note, Tom Cruise looks really good. He's 59. He's like barely aged in the last couple of decades, and he's still doing these like physically intense roles. And he's still an alpha manlet. So credit where credit's due, Tom Cruise. You're still a Chad, despite your height and despite your age. So Maverick has been in the Navy for the last 30 years. He's never been promoted. He's never retired because he's a simple man. He doesn't want to get promoted because he doesn't want to stop flying jet planes. Which, I mean, to be honest, flying jets is pretty badass, so I can't really blame him that he'd rather do that than sit behind a desk. So Maverick gets major props for wanting to do that. And it starts out with him test flying a jet that can go up to Mach 10. And there's kind of a cool scene where he flies it. However, due to his recklessness, he gets the plane blown up. And this is kind of a tribute. Once again, this is the Boomer Pill movie to the old U.S. Air Force, to when pilots were still flying planes rather than all this drone stuff, where it's about grit. It's about the man behind the aircraft. It's about the warrior code, that kind of thing, camaraderie. It has that sense that you really had back before movies became really anti-American, like from the 50s and 60s, with like the old John Wayne war movies, where it's just like a bunch of guys, even though there's a woman in it, being guys and bonding over their shared experience as warriors. And that's pretty cool. So I do like that aspect of this film a lot. So Maverick gets in trouble for disobeying orders and blowing up probably something that cost the US government $1 billion. However, his friend Val Kilmer, aka Iceman, is still around. And once again, he saves Maverick from being dishonorably discharged from the Navy. Iceman, however, has terminal cancer and is dying. And we get a genuinely heartfelt scene where Maverick goes and they kind of have a last bonding brotherly moment. So Iceman gives him the job of training a group of the best pilots that the US Navy has on an impossible mission. And something I'll give this film a lot of credit for is that it completely avoids talking about politics, aside from the US Army trying to automate and getting away from having living soldiers. But that's very much kind of a thing about the human spirit, and that's kind of a generic theme. It's not really political. But we really have no idea who they're fighting against or anything like that, what the cause of the conflict is. And I think that was also the case in the original Top Gun. It's just nice to not have to deal with that. So they have this like overly complicated plan where they have to come in through a canyon really fast. They have to basically do a Death Star trench run. Then there's this really small ventilation thing that they not only have to hit with one bomb, but 2 rounds of bombs. Then they have to pull up a sheer cliff and experience like 10 Gs, dodge a bunch of missiles, and make it back to the carrier. And initially, Naval Command is expecting them all to die, and they're okay with that. But Maverick's like, no, you're not going to die on my watch. And I have to say, I feel kind of bad for John Hamm, because he plays the same character in like everything now. I mean, he plays the exact same character he was in Richard Jewell. He's like the bureaucratic higher up who can't take the older guy who isn't as polished and sophisticated as him. And he just basically shits on Maverick for a lot of this movie. And one of the people in Maverick's training class is Goose's son, who is appropriately named Rooster. Generally speaking, I actually like most of the nicknames. Hangman's a good nickname. Phoenix is good. Warlock is good. Payback's all right. Most of the nicknames are actually not bad. So I'll give them that. And Rooster still blames Maverick for his father dying. And over it, you kind of have them gradually reconcile, him forgive Maverick, and them kind of adopting a bit of a mentoree or father-son relationship. And some stuff happens. Val Kilmer dies. Maverick gets kicked out of the training. However, he comes back, steals a fighter, and he flies the obstacle course in less time than was thought to be physically possible. So the Navy decides that they're going to give him command of the operation. And something I'm going to have to say that I really appreciate about this is how cool the actual plane scenes are. I don't know if F-18s are actually this maneuverable, but it's kind of amazing how close they can fly to each other, the kind of maneuvers that they can pull off without the planes like exploding or tearing themselves apart. It is very fluid and organic, and I did enjoy just the scenes where they were just flying around during training or whatever. Just a lot of fun. Once again, very, very good special effects. Very just visually pleasant film to watch. So we get into the final part of the movie where they do the Death Star trench run, and they manage to get through it. However, at the last minute, Maverick blocks a missile that was headed for Rooster, allowing him to get away. And people aren't sure if Maverick's dead or not, but he manages to survive. And then an attack helicopter is about to get him, but Rooster comes in and saves him from being killed by a helicopter gunship. He gets shot down too. So then Rooster and Maverick go to the enemy base, and they steal one of the F-14 Tomcats, which I think is the plane they used in the original movie, and they shoot down two super modern fighters with their guns and countermeasures, despite being like 40 years older. And Hangman, who wasn't allowed to come on the mission, shows up and saves them from another fighter. Everybody gets to go home, and the movie ends on a high note. So overall, I gotta give the film credit. It's just a fun action movie with good music, good camaraderie. You just don't see too many films like this. That's just kind of a good traditional Hollywood movie. And I gotta say, I mean, the boomer pill's not too bad. I wouldn't mind seeing something else like this. I don't think there's really a need to make another Top Gun movie unless they want to do maybe a reboot or something. But it was a good film. I'd say if you like action movies or Tom Cruise or just kind of want some good popcorn entertainment, I definitely recommend this film. I'd probably give this an 8 out of 10. It's pretty good. It definitely gets a thumbs up from me.